Alright, guys, I'm LQ. This is the LQ review, and it's time for me to make some people mad. Time for me to make some people mad. So first of all, before I anger you, make sure you subscribe to my channel. I put out a lot of content. Want to make sure that you're up to date with what I'm doing, but gotta make some people mad here. All right, let's talk about the Snyder Cut, the mythical Snyder Cut. Oh, are they gonna ever release it? Maybe HBO Max will release the Snyder Cut. Okay, let's. DCEU fans don't deserve the Snyder Cut. I hope the WB never releases it. That's right. I hope Warner Brothers and DC never releases the Snyder Cut because DC fans don't deserve it. Let me explain. Man of Steel came out, and Man of Steel was, in my opinion, Man of Steel is one of the greatest comic book movies ever made. I love it. It is a beautifully made movie, deconstructs Superman in wonderful ways, and tells the Superman story in a new, modern context that was just as a lifelong Superman fan. I've been reading Superman for more than 30 years, and as a lifelong Superman fan, I adored Man of Steel. Henry Cavill is my Superman. Yes, I grew up with Christopher Reeve. I grew up with him. Henry Cavill is my Superman. It was just, in my opinion, Man of Steel was wonderful. The fans couldn't stop crying about it. Fans couldn't stop crying about Man of Steel. Well, Superman doesn't kill people. Superman doesn't kill. He killed General Zod. Superman doesn't kill. Superman killed General Zod in the comics. He did. He did. Look it up. Also, remember the issue in Superman Doomed when Superman ripped Doomsday in half? Not at the waist, nah. He ripped him in half. Alright, Superman has definitely killed people in the comics when there was no other way out of it. He killed General Zod. He killed Doomsday. I'm sure if I thought about it, I could come up with some other people that Superman have killed. This whole idea that Superman is never killed is asinine. Alright? Well, Jonathan Kent... that Kevin Costner didn't portray Jonathan Kent well. Alright. I agree with this to some extent. To some extent, I agree with this because I believe that in my Superman, Jonathan Kent inspires Clark to become Superman. And that's not really what happens in Man of Steel. Alright, but Zack Snyder tried to put Man of Steel in a realistic context, a modern day context. In modern day context, a father protecting his son is accurate. Jonathan Kent was protecting Clark. He wasn't encouraging Clark, dress up in tights and go out and save people. No, he was protecting his son's secret until his son was ready. In modern context, not in 1937 or 1939 context, in modern context, Jonathan Kent behaved how a father would behave. So, I disagree with all the well, Superman would have taken the battle out of Metropolis. Too much destruction in Metropolis. General Zod was intent on killing people. What was Superman gonna do? Fly out of Metropolis and say, come on, come fight me, I'm over here. Zod would have just stayed in Metropolis and killed people. These criticisms of Man of Steel are asinine. Man of Steel is one of the greatest comic book movies ever made. Let's fast forward to Batman vs. Superman. Alright? Now, I'm not telling anybody that you have to like Batman vs. Superman. I get the criticisms of Batman vs. Superman. I don't necessarily agree. I loved Batman vs. Superman. Loved it. I thought it was wonderful. Yes, it had some third act problems, especially when you start factoring in Doomsday, start factoring some of Lex Luthor's overall plot. Had some problems, but I get some of the criticisms. It was an unconventional Lex Luthor. It was kind of an unconventional way to tell the Batman story. I get it, but I love Batman vs. Superman. And the fans couldn't stop crying. Batman vs. Superman wasn't very good. It was bad. Batman vs. Superman was a good movie. It was a good movie. If you didn't like it, that's cool. If you didn't like it, that's cool. I'm not here to try to convince somebody to like Batman vs. Superman. I liked it a lot. Alright? But it was part of Zack Snyder's overall vision. You can't want the Justice League Snyder cut and still criticize Batman vs. Superman. I don't think it works that way. Alright? So Zack Snyder does Man of Steel. Fans hated it. Fans cried about it. Zack Snyder does Batman vs. Superman. Fans hated it. Fans cried about it. Zack Snyder produces Suicide Squad. Fans hated it. Fans cried about it. Alright? Suicide Squad was a hot mess. But forget about that. Fans hated it. Fans cried about it. What the heck is WB supposed to do? What the heck was Warner Brothers supposed to do with Justice League? At this point, the fans are the reason that Warner Brothers pulled Zack Snyder out. I know that there was the whole his daughter committed suicide thing, this whole nasty thing that was the public reason why he backed out, but he got fired. Zack Snyder got fired. We all know Zack Snyder got fired. So let's not pretend that he didn't. Warner Brothers fired Zack Snyder from Justice League, and they brought in Joss Avengers Whedon to save Justice League. And we got an abortion of a movie. Justice League was an abortion of a movie. Now I enjoyed Justice League. It wasn't a good movie. It wasn't a good movie, but I'm a big DC nerd. So I enjoyed Justice League for what it was. It's one of those things where I can look at it and say, yeah, that's a bad movie, but I liked it. It was an abortion of a movie. Alright? But it's because of the fans that Warner Brothers made this change. And if you didn't like Batman vs. Superman, if you didn't like Man of Steel, that's cool. Movies are subjective. You don't have to like this stuff. But the thing is that the majority of the fans did not like Batman vs. Superman, and they cried about it loudly. They cried about it loudly. A lot of fans didn't like Man of Steel. Man of Steel was divisive. And the fans that didn't like it cried about it loudly. And the fans ran Zack Snyder's name through the mud. The fans were the ones calling Zack Snyder out. Because it wasn't a Marvel movie. DC should do what Marvel's doing. One movie for each character and then bring it together in the Avengers. DC has no business doing what Marvel's doing. They were perfectly fine doing it their own way. They did not have to copy Marvel, nor should they have. Justice League could have been the first movie. It could have been, because they didn't have to do it the way that Marvel did. But they have to do it the way that Marvel did. There were some other problems. Well, Henry Cavill, that's not Superman. That's not Chris Reeves' Superman. Clearly, Zack Snyder had an arc in mind for Superman. Never got a chance to tell it. You know why? Because that wasn't Christopher Reeve's Superman. Alright, fans also had a problem with Batman. That's not Chris Nolan Batman. Alright. The fans whined. The fans complained. The fans cried. WB, Warner Brothers, had to make a move. They had to do something different. That's why Zack Snyder got fired. They had to. I don't blame Warner Brothers for this one bit. Now, maybe I blame them for rushing Justice League out after they brought Joss Whedon on. They didn't give Joss Whedon much time to do the reshoots to Justice League that he wanted to do, because those Warner Brothers execs had to get their bonuses. So they had to get it out before the end of the year. So yeah, I blame Warner Brothers for that. But I don't blame Warner Brothers for firing Zack Snyder and bringing on Joss Whedon. Because it's what the fans wanted. The fans wanted Zack Snyder out. The fans were dragging Zack Snyder's name through the mud. They wanted him gone. And now, the fans are the ones crying about wanting the Zack Snyder cut. The fans are the ones like, man, Zack Snyder, he had a vision. I'd love to see that. Love to see Darkseid. Love to see Choi as the Atom. I'd love to see the Parademons. I'd love to see all this other stuff that he had planned for Justice League. Too bad we'll never get it because of Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers won't release it. No. Warner Brothers aborted Zack Snyder's version because the fans demanded it. Warner Brothers aborted Zack Snyder's version because the fans demanded it. Now the fans are the ones saying, boy, oh boy, oh boy, wish we had that Zack Snyder version. Fans deserve it. Fans deserve it. And it's just too bad because I think Zack Snyder had an interesting vision for the DCEU. I really do. I think he had an interesting vision for the DCEU, and it's too bad that we'll never see where that goes now. And now, because of the fans, we exist in this world where the DCEU, it's all connected. It's all connected. It's not connected like the MCU is connected. It's not connected like the DCEU was trying to be connected before the fans cried about it and got Zack Snyder fired. Remember, there was references to the DCEU in Wonder Woman. Strong references. There was very strong references to the DCEU in Suicide Squad. In fact, Suicide Squad was a response to what happened in Batman vs. Superman. They were trying to connect things like the MCU. But now that Zack Snyder got fired because the fans cried, everything's connected. Everything's connected like the X-Men movies are connected. Connected, but not really. Because of the fans. So, whenever somebody says, release the Snyder Cut, one of the first things I think is, were you one of the people crying about Batman vs. Superman? Were you one of the people publicly crying about Batman vs. Superman? Publicly crying about Man of Steel? If you were, then you have no business asking for the Snyder Cut. No business at all. Be quiet. Shut your mouth. You don't deserve the Snyder Cut. I'm not saying you had to like Batman vs. Superman. If you didn't like it, that's fine. But there were so many people who were deriding Zack Snyder for his vision. There were literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people demanding he get fired. I remember how happy people were when Joss Whedon the director of Avengers will save Justice League. It's too bad we'll never see the Snyder Cut. And I don't think we will, nor should we. If I were Warner Brothers, I would sit on that thing for the next 60 years. And then maybe release it to some fans who aren't even born yet and say, guess what? You guys get this. Not the people who cried about it. So, I don't know. I'm bitter. I really liked Zack Snyder's take on the DCEU. Really liked it. Thought he was taking it into a really interesting place. And it's just a bummer that we'll never get to see it. So, I don't know. You probably disagree with me. If so, feel free to let me know why you disagree with me in the comments down below. I'm a big boy. I can take it. Let me know what you think. Maybe you agree with me, and that's awesome too. You probably disagree. And if so, just tell me why you disagree. Who knows? Maybe you'll bring up a point that'll change my mind. Probably not, but maybe. So anyways, thank you guys for being here at the LQ Review. Thank you for indulging me and letting me be here where I get to make some people mad. and hopefully nobody takes this too seriously. And we're just all able to have a nice conversation about the Snyder Cut and why we probably aren't going to get it. So everybody, I'm LQ. This is the LQ Review. Thank you so much for being here. Until next time, we'll see you later.